Hello friends, I'm Dr. Rajiv Kovil and welcome to the world's first metabolic rodinar. It's the first of its kind in the world where we're going to let you explore places as well as give you a lot of insights into medical science. And today I have a partner who's Dr. Tejas Shah. Dr. Tejas Shah is a very well-known diabetologist in the city of Mumbai and a very good academician. And right now we are at Juhu Beach. We are going to his house, pick him up, take him on a picnic across Mumbai, and we're going to discuss science. See you all guys soon. Welcome to Mumbai. What is Mumbai? Is it an emotion? Is it a city that never sleeps? Is it the Mumbai spirit? I would say it's everything put together. Did you all know that Mumbai is the second largest collection of Art Deco buildings in the world after Miami? Did anyone know that Mumbai received the UNESCO World Heritage status as part of the Victorian Gothic and Art Deco ensembles of Mumbai? No. Staying in Mumbai for the last 5 decades, I didn't know that. So we are getting ready with our city tour today. Both Tejas and I live very close to the ISKCON temple. Yes, that's the International Society for Krishna Consciousness, where we hear devotees chant Hare Krishna, Hare Rama all the time. This temple has been here since 1978 and is visited by several hundreds of people every day. And what's interesting about Mumbai? It's a house to the theist and the atheist. People believe in diverse faiths and religion, and Bollywood is no less than religiosity. When we speak about this tinsel town, Big B is the name that pops up on our mind. We will pass his residence. He calls his home Jalsa, that is celebration. And now we are crossing India's 8-lane bridge that's brilliantly engineered, cable-stayed, and has pre-stressed concrete steel viaducts on either side. Yes, it's the Bandra Worli ceiling that reduces the travel time by approximately 20 minutes for the people traveling from Bandra to Worli. Marine Drive, or the Queen's Necklace, is yet another blissful place to visit. It's a C-shaped 6-lane concrete road along the coast of a natural bay, and the view out here is simply alluring. The Gateway of India is an arch monument built in the early 20th century. While there's a glorious history associated with this Indo-Saracenic structure, the dark memories of the 2008 Mumbai terror attacks are still afresh in our minds. 10 Pakistan-based terrorists launched a coordinated shooting and bombing attack in Mumbai at 5 key locations. We'll take you to 3 of these locations right away. Here's the first one. The Chhatrapati Shivaji terminus was the site of the first attack. The upscale and popular Leopold Cafe. The terrorists sprayed gunfire on the diners, killing 10 of them. You can still see the bullet holes or the bullet marks here. Finally, we come to the Taj Mahal Palace and Tower Hotel. The terrorists entered the hotel by breaking down a side door. They killed at least 31 people in this 4-day siege. Let's get back to some serious scientific discussion. So how has been practice now post this pandemic? Has it gone back to pre-COVID times?
I think so. Now it's almost gone back to the pre-COVID times. We have learned many things in the last 2 years. I think the way we have been seeing patients, we've been talking to patients, and many new things to learn. But in the last 2 years,
I think patients' mentality also has changed. They have been lot more into self-management nowadays.
Absolutely.
Even our paper suggested, people are doing better self-management. Hopefully, this is a trend which continues.
and hopefully this has been like a blessing, I think, in disguise, you can say, for in certain aspects where people have got more aware about many things, and maybe will take care about these chronic diseases much better in the days ahead, I think so.
I believe this pandemic has brought diabetes so much into focus
Absolutely.
that people have realized that you can get an infection and have worse outcome because of COVID.
People
So
who
now
were
the
not
case.
people who were not taking care about themselves, or not bothered about their sugars, have now suddenly become more aware, and they know that they need to take care more about it.
Absolutely.
So one way, I think it's something which I hope they remember it.
Because are you happy with these guidelines and all these newer and newer guidelines? Every year we have updation of guidelines, and are we actually putting these guidelines into real practice? Because to be frank, for me these guidelines are guidelines to fail. They tell us you go on increasing medications till one fails. While in treatment or real life, we would like to add many things and make sure we get our patients to goal, isn't it?
Desired control, yes.
Yeah,
Agree to that, Rajiv, because these guidelines, I think what the newer guidelines are, I feel they are focusing a lot on cardiovascular and comorbidities. I think where they are lacking is for patients, simpler patients, what we see in our clinical practice every day. Those patients who come to us newly diagnosed, those who don't have any comorbidities,
True.
Younger patients where they don't require what the guidelines mention many times. So I think they should have a clause, or they should have something where they guide us how to treat simpler patients early, how to
Exactly.
make them achieve that control
Exactly.
early in the best possible way with the best possible drugs.
Exactly. So lifestyle changes, diet therapy, all these things, plus addition
Plus,
of medications, because now we have medicines which can get you to a control without hypoglycemia. So why not get them from a diabetic level to a euglycemic level and maintain them there?
Absolutely.
We can prevent so many complications, and the quality of life of a patient would go so well. And this whole mental thing about in patients and in doctors, that if you are on a treatment, you are a diabetic. If you are not on treatment, you are not a diabetic. So this whole patient goes into this shell that if my drugs are withdrawn or my two drugs become one drug, I am doing better. Now that is something we need to educate a lot of doctors, patients across, isn't it?
Yes, absolutely right. And the problem is, the focus has always been in the patient's mind that when will he go off drugs.
Absolutely.
Rather than that, I think the focus should always be that how can you achieve the desired target as early as possible, and for how long you can maintain this target in the best possible way, in the safest possible way. So the guidelines should guide us, or to all the treating physicians, that which is the best way to start a therapy, which is the best way to maintain the therapy in the long run, and how it will help the patients.
And also this new word, reversal of diabetes. I've been irritated with it, because there's nothing like reversal. It's remission.
It's absolutely,
You
it's
know,
remission.
it's remission.
And the thing reversal has been put in the minds of people, and by I think the so-called advocates who try to make people feel that there is something to reverse
so
that.
many apps who can do better than 10-15 years of hard work which we have done in medical schools, and an app can reverse your diabetes and all these things. This is if you can keep a patient in euglycemic stage with the available drugs, 10 years, 15, 20 years later, he's going to get that legacy effect of good control. That is what data tells us,
And then the most important thing is to reduce the glucotoxicity
Absolutely.
in the early years of their diabetes. I think we have enough data to show that once you reduce the glucotoxicity in the first few years, and if the patient remains in a good control for the first 5 years, the legacy effect is bound to happen, and the complications are going to go down.
This is something which somehow people don't understand. people are still glucocentric. They don't look at a long term thing that if I can get to euglycemia, maintain it, that popping a tablet is a bigger problem than getting a complication. This is something we need to actually make sure that our doctor community
How
agrees
often we
to.
see these patients who have done well when they were diagnosed, they take some medications, they control their sugars well, and once they are better, they just leave everything and then they come back to you after 2 years with a bad HbA1c, with an A1c about 10, not on any medications, and you need to start them again on higher drugs. I think that is
Something we need to change. I agree. Beautiful, iconic structure of the Taj and the gateway, and we had people who came through this route and invaded it. My God, very, very, very tough to even imagine that.
That day, it is
Still
etched
there,
in the minds of
still there,
everybody, I'm
completely
sure, all
etched
over
in our
India.
mind. I don't know. But
And the beauty of Mumbai was that everything was
absolutely
back to normal.
back to
in few
normal.
days.
Mumbai spirit is there, and I hope our people with diabetes also have this spirit, because diabetes is like that. Those people who came by that sea route, it's like that. They come through guerrilla warfare and attack our patients, and they don't realize that.
And it's like they invade it, they go inside you and it destroys you.
Exactly.
I think that's what, again, where we need to make our patients also understand
Understand that.
that be aware of what is invading you and then take care of it. That's the only way you can take control of
I
it.
agree, and this drugs that we have today has actually changed so much, so much. We when we were studying 25 years back, diabetes, it was like a chicken and egg. Insulin resistance
And
deficiency. We
Either
didn't know
you give
anything.
an insulin or you give a sulfonylurea
Exactly.
and metformin.
And today, how much has it changed?
I think DPP4s, from the time DPP4s came, I think it
that
has changed
is
the way
that
we
is
manage
the
diabetes.
complete. I think the most path breaking is the incretin based therapies and the DPP. I think Tejas around 2006 or 7 when the first DPP4 must have come.
I think so.
Until that time, we didn't even know that there is alpha cells have got this kind of a potential, and that high glucagon which we see can actually be causing diabetes.
And the incretin axis, the GLP, the role it plays, it entirely changed the way we now look at managing our patients.
Completely.
And the safety, I think that the beauty of a DPP4 is the safety. You prescribe it and you forget it. It's like that. The way we don't need to worry about any major side effects, the hypoglycemia, the weight,
it goes. It takes me back to that Hero Honda had in our childhood. Fill it, shut it, forget it. Because patient does not have any side effect, has good response, no drug to drug interactions. It's almost placebo like. So it so much helps our patients, and they can remain in good control for so long with that. And as compared to the white population, it does so well. And there's data to suggest that
absolutely. Asians, we have studies which have shown that Asians respond better to
absolutely
DPP4s. The efficacy is better.
And we see anywhere between 1.5 to 2% reduction with the DPP4.
Though theoretically, they say 0.7, 0.8, but in clinical practice, it is anyway above 1%. I feel that way. And of course, again, the rule applies that the higher the A1C, better is the reduction.
Completely.
So again, the focus is that you start early.
Hit early.
And the results are better.
And also, when you look at this ominous octet, the DPP4 plus metformin almost takes care of 5 or 6 defects.
Absolutely.
So we are also taking care of multiple defects using 2 drugs, which is also what our long-term plan is, that we attack all these pathophysiological defects, and that's how we need to treat diabetes.
Absolutely.
And that's how the patient gets better also.
And when we talk about the safety aspect, we are all talking about cardiovascular, renal. I think if you look at the basket of DPP4s, renal safe, hepatic safe, cardiac safe, neutral, if you can say, if you want to argue that they don't give benefit, but they are neutral.
Absolutely.
So it is, they are wonderful drugs.
Wonderful
to
drugs.
start
Even
off
I
with,
think-
and to continue a patient on a long run, I think they are the safest drugs.
I,
that we
I
have
think so too,
today.
because, and as you said, that has revolutionized practice. You know, if the DPP4s hadn't come, you know, we would still be using drugs which probably cause hypoglycemia. The drugs do not cause, but many a time it's the patient's fault and he doesn't eat something and causes hypoglycemia and he blames the doctor for it.
So Rajiv, we spoke about DPP4s. We spoke about different incretins. Very recently, few years back, we got a very important trial called Verify, which spoke about, which told us about use of DPP4s in newly diagnosed patients. So, what are your views on that, Rajiv? What do you think? How is it going to change the way we are practicing?
I think Verify actually verified that we all were thinking before, that I always am somebody who always thought that these guidelines are guidelines to failure. And what Verify actually tested was whether we have to follow guidelines and add one drug at a time, or whether we can go like a cowboy and put multiple drugs, like 2 drugs at diagnosis, and see whether we have benefits over a period of time. And the best part about Verify was, one, newly diagnosed less than 24 months, 2, HbA1c 6.5 to 7.5. ये HbA1c में जब patient होता है, so usually we may not even intensify patients. You know, we may just say कि चलो let us see for few months and see.
And for the old school of thought, it was always like that you wait, you give lifestyle for 6.5 to 7.5, you wait for 3 months, then you see the A1C, then you add metformin, then you wait for 3 months.
Completely.
And considerable time was lost, and the patients remained at a higher A1C.
So this-
looking at the compliance of our patients.
Exactly. So this clinical inertia, bad legacy is all because of us.
Absolutely.
You know, we didn't have studies like Verify which told us that go firing right from day one, and it's a very good prospective longitudinal study which tells us that when you give 2 drugs at a time, and in this type vildagliptin, metformin, you are able to have a durability of 5 years. In a clinical trial, if it's that much, real life will be much more. That means first 5 years patient is below 7%. This is very good.
So for the benefit of all, Verify was a study in newly diagnosed patients less than 2 years, 6.5 to 7.5 A1C, put on, they had 2 arms. One was a metformin arm,
True.
where metformin plus placebo, and the other arm was metformin plus vildagliptin they used in this study. And they waited, the primary endpoint was to look at the initial treatment failure, where the aim was to bring down the A1C less than 7. And those who did not achieve the A1C less than 7, even in the placebo group, they were then subjected to vildagliptin group again.
True.
So it had these different arms, and therefore it helped to assess the difference between the two also.
Absolutely.
That those who were put initially only on metformin, how they
How
fared,
they
and
do.
how when they were shifted onto vilda plus metformin, how they felt.
Absolutely.
And the result was better even in that arm. So that itself tells us how
And
well-
another very interesting part about Verify was in period 2, you had one group which was already added vildagliptin plus metformin from day 1, and another group where vildagliptin was added after metformin failed. But the people who were added vildagliptin from metformin from day 1 did
They did
fairly
better.
better. So
They
the
did
secondary
better.
treatment failure was better. Again, coming back to what we were discussing early, that pathophysiological approach, when we use multiple drugs from day 1, something changes where they are able to hold back the glycemic control, and the durability with both the arms shows that when you add both of them together as compared to sequentially added, the both added together is better.
much better.
Much better. Much better.
So in the original metformin placebo arm, the treatment failure was seen in a period of 3 years,
Right.
36 months.
Right.
While in the original vilda plus metformin arm, the treatment failure was not seen even till the trial got over.
Absolutely.
It went beyond that.
Beyond
So it
that.
just tells
It
us
again
that-
tells us.
that you start early, you give 2 drugs early. A drug like a DPP4 and a metformin works wonderfully if you start from the very beginning. It doesn't mean that you give that to all patients, but it is a sign, it is a signal which tells us that you need to open your eyes and maybe be more aggressive from the very first day.
Completely agree. See, the Verify is very similar to the Adopt also. Similar group, Adopt, where rosiglitazone was tested versus glibenclamide and metformin, and rosiglitazone came right up there. And we also realized that the TZDs as a group are such durable molecules. And vildagliptin plus metformin comes there. It's a very, very durable molecule. If you look at the Indian subset of the Verify, that's even more interesting.
Yes.
Because metformin failure is at 1.5 years. That means majority of our Indian patients would fail to metformin in 1.5 years.
Absolutely.
And then Vilda plus Met takes the durability is 4.5 years, which again tells us that we are supposed to be more beta cell deficient. We have lesser amount of functional use of the pancreas, but this particular combination works better. What more to do? We are doing.
And though they could not assess exactly what impact it will have on macrovascular risk reduction, I think the Verify also tried to show that
Right.
Hypothetically that if the benefits are achieved so early, the reduction in macrovascular benefits will also be accordingly achieved much better after a few years' time.
Absolutely.
So it itself tells us.
We are getting much better benefit in Indian patients. What more do we want? We want our patients to be on one particular group of drugs which does not have hypoglycemia, does not have drug-to-drug interaction, does not have many placebo-like side effects, and a durable control for 5 years. What more do we want? We are doing. I think if given a choice and we have to remotely put patients on any oral anti-diabetics, for me and especially remote consulting, Vilda plus Med becomes much easier in a diagnosed diabetes for less than 2 years, isn't it?
Absolutely. And given the present scenario where we were always initially talking about the cost of DPP4s, I think with Vilda going off patent, and we have vildagliptin available at such cheaper cost in our country now, I think it is a go-to drug, I would say, to use this combination from the very beginning.
Absolutely.
We have good quality vildagliptins available, cheapest cost possible that we have, a scientifically based molecule available all over the world for the last more than 10 years. What more do we want?
Absolutely. And even before the Verify, we had the Edge data, which was almost 50,000 patients, and Indians had a huge contribution, which is the real world evidence. So you have a fantastic data from Verify, prospective randomized control, you have real world data on 50,000 patients. What more do we want? And that kind of evidence backing this particular group of molecules, I think we should be adding it in most of our type 2 diabetics, unless there is a contraindication or an adverse effect or some kind of an adverse reaction to the drug. Otherwise, everyone should get better with. What do you say?
Absolutely. And we know that there are no head-to-head comparisons between all gliptins, but we also know that more or less they are same.
Almost same, yes.
In terms of efficacy, Vilda has shown its efficacy because its usage being a drug which is used twice a day, the potency, the 24 hours DPP4 inhibition that Vilda gives is a complete 24 hours DPP4 inhibition, safe more or less in all conditions, at an affordable cost. I think
it's a winner all the way.
It's a winner all the way.
Perfect.
Perfect.
Hello everyone, I hope you all enjoyed today's metabolic webinar, and I'm going to give you a short summary of what me and Dr. Tejas Shah covered today. We first looked at the guidelines, and I have always believed that doctors should clinically have an overview of the guidelines, but many a time the guidelines are guidelines to failure, because they always tell us to up titrate dosage, which again means that patients with type 2 diabetes have a very progressive disorder. What do the guidelines also tell us? Guidelines tell us that you need to classify patients on comorbidities. But what we need to understand is that many a time what our patients come to us is not for a piecemeal kind of a treatment, but a holistic treatment, where we need to give them drugs which control their blood sugar,
which minimize side effects, which helps their quality of life and makes it durable in the long run. So the ADA and ACE tells us when the ADA tells us that when the HbA1c is more than 9%, consider using two drugs. The ACE is a little bit more proactive and says that you should use two drugs when your HbA1c is more than 7.5%. The RSSD also tells us that we need to add on drugs as early as possible. I am somebody who's very, very proactive, and we need to add submaximal agents or probably maximal agents at lower dosages at very, very earlier on in therapy so that we can have a pathophysiological approach towards treatment of type 2 diabetes. So what is the evidence that we have that we should follow a very, very proactive approach as against the sequential add-on which most of our guidelines tell us? The evidence that we have today is called as the Verify study. The Verify study looks at two groups of patients, two cohorts, which have been followed up for close to 5 years. One cohort was given metformin plus placebo. The other cohort was given vildagliptin plus metformin. And the first period was an HbA1c more than 7% at least 12 weeks apart. And if the cohort which fails to the therapy goes into period 2. So if metformin monotherapy patients fail, they then get added on to vildagliptin. While when the vildagliptin plus metformin combination fails initially, they continue with vildagliptin combination in period 2. What we saw in Verify, that patients who are added on to a combination of vildagliptin plus metformin had a treatment failure much longer than metformin monotherapy. One, that is no rocket science that when you add on two drugs, you will have two drugs working better. But period 2, where both metformin and vildagliptin, with both the arms at metformin plus vildagliptin, one sequentially added on to metformin and one vildagliptin plus metformin to start on, clearly show that when we add on vildagliptin plus metformin initially, the durability is much, much better. And the secondary treatment failure was better when we add on vildagliptin plus metformin very earlier on in diabetes, thus telling us that the pathophysiological approach where we put two drugs at a time at an HbA1c between 6.5 to 7.5, where we may not be very, very intensive, helps patient over a period of time. The treatment failure of a combination of metformin plus vildagliptin was 61 months. That is very, very high. That means more than 5 years we could have consistent control on this combination without side effects, no drug-to-drug interactions, no quality of life issues, and no hypoglycemia. This is the kind of durability of control we would like to give our patients with type 2 diabetes, and this is what is the legacy effect. If we are able to control patients very earlier on in diabetes, we will have emergent risk reductions in macro and microvascular disease. So that is what I would like to summarize with. Early combination of metformin and vildagliptin helps delay treatment failure and provide better glycemic control. One of the limiting factors of aggressive treatment is hypoglycemia, and metformin plus vildagliptin has very limited or very less hypoglycemia. Thank you all for a patient hearing. Thank you so much.